As Kenny mentioned, my name is Andrea Dalzell. Some of you may know who I am. You've maybe seen me on an Apple commercial alongside with Ian's Apple commercial, who's also in this room. I am affectionately known as the seated nurse because recently, as early as 2018, I was the first registered nurse in a wheelchair to get through nursing school and become the first nurse that uses a wheelchair in the state of New York. But I'm going to go back to my backstory a little bit. At the age of 5, I was diagnosed with transverse myelitis, which is inflammation of the spinal cord. By the time I was 12 years old, I was a paraplegic. I am a T10 to L1 paraplegic, and I use a manual wheelchair for my mobility everywhere. Without my wheels, I'm not going anywhere, just like a lot of you know. When you really think about how our injuries impact our lives or how our disability kind of sets forth, you're thrown into it. You're thrown into a world that able-bodied people are telling you how to navigate, and 90% of the time, you don't even want to hear it because you're just trying to figure out, is it a nightmare? Is it a reality that's going to be living for the next however many years? You're pushing and fighting to think that you're going to be the one. You're going to be the one to beat the odds. You're going to be the one that nothing is going to continue to hold you back. And you're fighting these thought processes. Imagine a 5-year-old being told that she's not going to walk again, or a 7-year-old, or a 12-year-old, or even in the place that you're at now at your age. Being told that you won't be able to do something is like saying to someone that, like, how would you know? How do you understand what I'm going to be going through? And you fight that for your entire life because that's all you know how to do. Or you succumb to them telling you that you can't do something because you don't see someone like you out there in the world. Well, at 12 years old, when I was told that I wasn't going to be walking again, that's exactly what happened. I rebelled. I said, there's no way that someone's going to be able to tell me that I can't do something. Now, my focus was never onto walking, but my focus was to say, well, if you're walking and I'm not, then it's your job to provide the space for me. It's your job to make sure that I can get into the building, or your job to make sure that I can get the education that I want to get. Everything seemed as though it was unfair. And I love to start this one story off telling everyone exactly how I rebelled. So in New York City, when you have a physical disability, you get what is it called? An IEP, and it allows you to get a bus service that comes directly to your home and takes you to school and back. Well, in New York, if you take this bus service, you are not allowed to use the metro system. You have to get onto the bus and go directly into the building, and then vice versa, they'll pull you out of class. And it put a label on me. It said that I was special education. It said that I couldn't be with my peers for after school programs. It didn't allow me to be social. And one day a friend said to me, let's go to the bagel store when you get in the morning. And that's normal for every New York student to be walking to school, to stop at the corner store, get snacks before they even go into the building, and then snack all day in school. And I wanted to do that. So I got onto this bus knowing one day that I was going to take that lift off and completely beeline away from all of the teachers that are standing there waiting for me. And one morning I woke up and I was like, it's going to be today. Got on that bus. As soon as that lift hit the concrete pavement, I made a beeline and rolled as fast as I could to the corner store. The teachers weren't following me, thankfully. But as soon as I came back to school, before the bell rang, I was told that I need to go to the principal's office. And in the principal's office, they told me that I was going to be suspended because of the fact that I disobeyed rules and that I put my life in jeopardy, and that it was unacceptable for someone with a disability to disobey the rules of the school. Well, I said, then call my mom because I don't want to take the bus anymore. I had just found freedom. I had found the freedom to go to the corner store with my friends and say that I can do something that all the rest of my peers can do. And it was normal. It gave me that sense of normalcy. And here they were telling me that that's not normal for someone with a disability. And I think we hear that pretty often from our own doctors and people in our lives that have no idea what it is to like really understand what our own disability is for us and how we get to navigate the world. So my mom literally was like, if she wants to take the regular metro to school and she wants to go on and doesn't have to worry about this yellow bus, then give her a metro pass. And that was a whole other story. They were like, there's no way that their students with disabilities can do that. What if something happens? My mom looked at me and she said, if you're late to school one day, you'll be back on the yellow bus. I was never back on the yellow bus after that. Needless to say that even when it snowed outside, I made sure that I was on time, whether that was making sure that I asked for help, making sure that I was communicating with my teachers, or making sure that, you know, my friends knew that I would need some type of help, maybe getting on or off the bus. Well, when it snowed, I had a principal come up to me and tell me, well, why didn't you tell me that you needed help? I said, I never asked for help. My dad is on his way. She said to me, well, you're Black, you're a woman, and you're disabled. I don't think that chip on your shoulder is going to last very long. Those were the 3 strikes she told me I had. She said that I wasn't going to go anywhere when I graduated high school. I'd probably end up in a junior college because that is what most people with disabilities at the time would do. And that I was going to live off of Social Security for the rest of my life. And I looked at her and I was like, what's so bad about that? She was trying to put me in a box, this box that was supposed to say that disability is terrible. When in actuality, if I were to finish junior college and live off of Social Security, I would still have a life and be paid to have that life. But she thought of it as something that was a negative and that was something to hinder us versus help to promote us in society. I didn't let that stand. I actually got into a 4-year university here in New York, and I decided to go to medical school. So there she goes. Here I am. I have an acceptance letter, and I showed up in her office with the acceptance letter just to say I made it, even though you said my 3 strikes would never last. So I went on to college. I studied neuroscience, biology at first. And when I took up the medical model, I realized I never wanted to be the doctor that said you couldn't do something. We know what those words do to us when you hear them. The doctors come in, the nurses come in, they gather in front of you, they gather in the office space, and you kind of feel that lump in your throat as if the world is about to implode. And they tell you, you will never be able to do insert whatever it is that they're telling you. And then you take a deep breath and you're like, how many times am I going to hear the word no? How many times am I going to hear the words that I will never be able to do something? And yet I have proven it since I was 12 that I have been able to get things done. But yet here you guys are hearing these words just like I've heard them, that this is not the reality. And yes, reality can be the biter, the one that says, well, there's steps here, so you can't get in, or there's no ramp, or your wheelchair won't be able to get in the space. We know that those are the realities. But when someone else is telling us that we will not be able to do something, it's like, can't you just incorporate technology a little bit more into your statement? Can you at least give me some type of hope? Because that's what healthcare does. No. So I realized I would never be a doctor, and that I would never want to ever tell someone that they wouldn't be able to do something or can't do something. And who best to change our lives or give us that hope back than the nurses that have cared for us from the moments that we were in their care, from the moments that we're wheeled into their rooms on a stretcher, in a chair, or whatever the case is. They're the ones holding our hands and saying that it's going to be okay. So I changed careers and I said, I am going to be a nurse instead. Like I said, I was the first nurse in a wheelchair in New York State to go through nursing school. And when I applied, I went on merit-based only. So it was based on all of my grades. I was an A student in college, and going into med school, I still had A grades and a 4.0 GPA. So I instantly got accepted. And on my first day of nursing school, mandatory orientation, I hear my name called and I'm asked to leave the classroom. And here they are, the deans of the nursing program and the president of the school telling me that I would not be able to continue on in nursing school because no nurse has ever had a disability in their program, and that I would not be able to continue on because I would be considered a liability, an infection risk, and that no hospital would allow me to complete my clinical courses there. And I looked at them and I said, well, the ADA says my education is covered and I've already been accepted. So if you tell me that you're rescinding my acceptance letter to this program, I literally have a legal case. They said, well, you can leave for today and we'll get back to you on everything that you've discussed with us. I said, I'm not leaving a mandatory orientation so that you can delay my entrance into the program. And that opened up another bag of worms. There they are telling me no. They put the stop sign up in front of me and I'm like, I'm not allowing you to tell me no because I've already done all the requirements that are asked of anyone who doesn't have a disability based on merit alone. I don't know what I'm about to face in this program, but I'm willing to face it and learn. And if you're telling me no from the jump, then you're not willing to learn either. So I stayed, and 4 years later, I have a baccalaureate degree in nursing. I went through over, I think it was 3,500 applications into nursing, a nursing position. Out of those 3,500 applications, 75 interviews that were received for clinical positioning, meaning that I would be in a hospital setting or in a clinical site where I was actually one-to-one with patients, I was denied a job for. So you're wondering, oh, 3,500 applications and 76 are clinical. How many interviews did you go on in total? I went on over 500 interviews in a span of a year and a half. Out of that, I told you 76 of them were clinical spaces and I was rejected from all of them. And then I still held positions in administrative positions where I was a director for a respite camp for those who need more hands-on attention than just family can give. I also was a case manager, to which we know case managers are always denying what we need. And I understand the practice that they go through. And I could never tell anyone in our position, no. I said this in medical model, and I say this in case management. Telling someone with a disability they can't get the devices that they need so that they can function in this world is like the worst thing ever to me. So I left case management within 7 months of being there. Then I became a school nurse for those on the autism spectrum. And I did that for 2 years right before the pandemic came to New York, and we became the epicenter. And they put out the call for nurses to be hands-on. Well, I answered the call and became the first nurse in a chair to be an ICU COVID nurse. Now, the crazy part about that is, yes, I was a nurse on the front lines. And when I started at Montefiore Medical Center last March, the clinical nurse officer came up to me while I was getting a report and said, I don't think you can be on our floor because you're an infection risk. And I looked at her and I said, did you take it up with HR? Because I'm already here. She didn't like that answer very much, but she left me alone for that night. And it's a good thing that she did, because the floor that I was on was an orthopedic surgical floor where they were bringing down vented patients because there was no more room for them up in the ICU. And the nurses on that floor had no idea how to work a vent. Well, I have a disability and 90% of my friends have disabilities too. And they have vents or they have intermittent ventilation. And I have suctioned them before and I have worked with their vents. Thank God to my friends, because that night 2 vented patients started to code and respiratory therapy could not make it down in time. So I was the only one that knew how to work a vent and went in, reset the vent, suctioned them, and those patients survived. But now those nurses were singing my praises and saying, we can't let her off the floor. She's the only one with vent knowledge. The chief nurse operator heard that I was the only one with vent knowledge and automatically shipped me over to the ICU. She said, your hands are better needed over there. So for every no that has come my way, I was able to say, just watch me. just wait a second, just give me the chance, just give me the opportunity. And sometimes if I didn't ask for it, I just took it because I knew the law was on my side versus having to wait for someone else to tell me no. It's not easy knowing the law, but it's kind of good to be able to say, I know that's not right, and therefore I'm going to fight it to the end. Now, post-pandemic, I am the chief manager for Ambulatory Care Center, which is primary care. Your primary care doctors don't necessarily know how to take care of us. We know that when we go to the doctor's office, they don't even know how to weigh us. And here I am being the chief nurse operator in there and saying, how is this happening? We have patients coming in with strokes, we have patients coming in with spinal cord injuries, and we have no idea how to even properly care for them. And yet we send them back into the world, not even listening to what their needs are. So now I'm here changing the standards of care for those of us that have spinal cord injuries and illnesses, one step at a time. Hopefully it'll be a larger scope of practice, but we're actually doing the study now. But my words to all of you really encompass just not stopping at a no. It's not stopping at someone else telling you what you can or can't do. It's you having the opportunity to really believe in yourself enough to know that whatever is supposed to be in front of you, you can get through it. And Here and Now Project, let me tell you, I know that with Kenny is always there to promote and support. And I know everyone is there to promote and support this unity within this community. We have someone that's always there to hold your hand and walk you through it. And sometimes we all feel like there is an alone moment, that there's no one that's going to understand exactly what it is. Actually, with an organization like Here and Now, is being able to story tell. Me telling you my story just gives you the power to go ahead and tell your story, because your story is just as important as mine. Just because of the fact that I have a platform where I'm given an opportunity to talk doesn't mean that I'm the only one that's important or worthy of being heard. You guys all have that story and just as important of being heard as anyone else, even those that care for us or are by our sides or our loved ones, our partners. They have a story too. And their story is just as valid to everything that we have going on, just because of the fact that we're living in a different reality than what the world tries to place us into. And when you really think about how hard you've worked just to be in this point of life, it's different. You have to really give yourself time to give grace and say, I've done that. I've gotten to this point. I see where I'm going, and that nothing can stop me. Okay, maybe some steps can, but that doesn't mean a ramp can't be built or an elevator can't be put in or your voice can't make that happen. It's how do we get you to that point? And that's really what it is. So from the time I was 12 until the time where we're in now, it's saying that I have given myself enough grace to realize that I know I'm not going to climb steps. I'm not going to go to the top of Mount Everest. I'm probably not going to scuba dive into the ruins. But at the same time, I'm not going to not allow myself to try if I wanted to, or figure out a way to make it happen. Technology changes every day. And with technology changes, it's making it easier for those of us to get online, come together with those who are across the world and make these plans actually come to fruition. And that's a great part about having a community that's always willing to hear you. But then our collective voices get to push the way everyone else hears us and sees us. They see us as powerhouses. They see us as invincible. Sometimes they look at us as though we can't do something, and then we show them that we can, and it changes the perception. And then they go and they start to advocate on our behalf, which is why it's so important for all of you to always tell your story. And if you think that only one follower is not enough to tell your story to, that one person can go and tell your story to 5 people, and those 5 people go to 10, and 10 grows into 20. And that's how I grow into 30,000 followers now. I didn't always have a platform, but given that I get to tell my story, I'm sure you guys are going to say, hey, I heard this story from someone. And guess what? You guys have now pushed my stories to some other people, which is why I'm telling you your story is just as important as mine. Your no doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop tomorrow. There are no no's that are going to ever hold you back unless you tell yourself no. And that's it. For me, I don't tell myself no anymore. I said, okay, maybe just not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next week. Maybe today's not the right time. But then you start to think about when it will be, and don't push your deadline. Just say, it's just not today. Keep moving forward. And when you really think about how you want to encompass your disability into the reality of world, just make the difference. Just say, how is it that I can make a difference in this one moment? I didn't have to make a difference in nursing, but I chose to. I could have heard them say that I will never be a nurse. And then if we would have had a pandemic, those nurses on that unit would have never had me, and those patients probably would have never survived. Well, that's the same story you have. You get to say, well, today I am in a hospital bed, or I am at home and I'm feeling depressed. And I'm going to say it on social media, or I'm going to write a book about it, or I'm going to start journaling, and that journal becomes a book about your story, and someone's going to read it, and then they're going to find inspiration. If there's one thing I love to hear in our community is when our community members come back and say, you're such an inspiration to me. And that's because I know that I've changed something for them, whether it is inspiration to become a nurse, whether it is inspiration to go back to higher education, whether it's inspiration to start a nonprofit, or to just tell their story to one person. That's brave. And it's something that we don't often look at as being inspiring, or there's nothing inspiring about what we do. There's a lot of inspiration about what we do in our community. Now, if it's coming from other outside of our community saying that we're an inspiration, sometimes we cringe and we're like, oh, we're out here and we're just living. And we don't want to hear that. But take it into consideration how you're actually changing their perception. Because one day we know they can very much join our community. We are the fastest and largest growing minority in the world. There's 1.5 billion of us out there. And at any point in time, we know that we can be welcoming them into this community, unfortunately. And when we say that and they're talking to us and they're saying, you're an inspiration, they're really saying, wow, I've never seen someone with a disability being able to do that, because representation really isn't out there. So when you're out there and you're hearing it from outside of the community, take it as a badge of honor. Like, yep, I'm changing the way people see people with disabilities. I'm there showing them that it can be done regardless of what their perception is, or what your own perception is of yourself. Sometimes it's hard to just get up out of bed and get going. Sometimes we want to lay in for 8 or 9 hours. Trust me, I think I did that this morning before I got here, right? I needed to relax, and that's okay. But then when you do get up and you do hear it, and you hear that you're an inspiration, take it as, yes, I need that, because you are changing that perception. You get to change the narrative. And that's everything that I'm doing every single day, is changing the narrative. I want to be able to show people that disability not only doesn't stop me, it doesn't limit my ability to keep living. And that's all we ever want to do, is just keep living. Now, I want to end there, just because I think I may have more questions than I'm going to have time allotted for, or maybe not sure. But you guys let me know if you have any questions.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? I've been having some technical issues. You can hear me? Okay. No, I mean, you nailed it. That you know, like your story and is one story that can be every one of our stories. And as you said, we are the fastest growing minority in the world, and and every story matters. And you know, like, I think we're going to open it up to see if anybody had any questions. Yeah, you know, if not, you know, I wouldn't. You know, if you want to touch on some of the work that you've done with the Access Project as well, you know, with as a caseworker and some of those things that you did as well, I think that's another kind of powerful aspect of helping the community and giving back too.
Yeah, so in 2013, I met powerhouses out here. Their name is George Gallego, Alex Agudin, and Yannick Benjamin. Those three guys pretty much shaped the way I saw disability out here in New York. Like I said to you, New York, as much as you think about it as a metropolis and maybe thinking about it as a very inaccessible city, it's also very inaccessible to see people achieving out here because, like I said, from my early days in school, you get labeled as special education and you kind of have to stick to a bubble. And these guys are lawyers, sommeliers, which is a master wine pairer, and George Gallego being a powerhouse in the political realm. And they started a non-profit, fully accessible gym called the Access Project. And they brought me on as I was finishing up my nursing education in 2017, where I would be able to allow people with disabilities to come into a gym setting or a training setting and be able to monitor them for any type of autonomic dysreflexia. So they didn't have to worry about not getting care when they were in the gym. And this whole project was to be able to set up where they would come in fully accessible, have access to trainers, have access to physical therapists, OT, and get provided either lunch or dinner. And that was open to them 3 days out of the week. That was fully paid for through the Medicaid Medicare program. And where I was doing the community outreach to not only get clients to come in, but also making sure that they were cared for while they were in the building. Since the pandemic, we closed 2 of our locations, unfortunately, but we are opening up a 3rd location in Harlem very soon. Hopefully, we've been pushed back for about 3 months now due to unforeseen circumstances, but can't wait to open back up for the community. I've also started a nonprofit called The Seated Position, which allows not only students, but for those that have gotten a disability later on in life, to be able to come back to the drawing board and maybe learn something new. So we open up the doors for accessibility in education and accessibility in healthcare or in the workforce in general. We provide for assistive equipment. We actually teach about what accommodations are and what accommodations should be in the workforce, how those should be documented in HR, because HR loves to say that a doctor has to tell us what it is that you can and cannot do, when a doctor can't actually talk about that. It's only up to us that we can say what it is that we can and can't do or what our accommodations would be. So been shifting the narrative there. And then also in case management, when I was there, learning how to navigate the wording in case management is imperative. I think a lot of us have been able to fight the way we deal with insurance companies, but when you have a case manager, everything is worded about what you can do within the home. So when you think about what it is that you need, think about how that particular item is going to help you out within your own home versus what you're going to use it for outside of your home. That's how I was able to really fight for a lot of my patients to get the things that they needed, because I was able to word their wheelchair needs to what it would do for them inside of their home, cutting down their aid hours by being able to give them hydraulic lift on their chair, or being able to get some extra accessories in their home because they'll be able to move or help them out in a certain way that's not necessarily they're going to use at home, but we're going to put it in the home. I realized with case management, a lot of it comes down to your relationship with your doctor as well. Having that open line of communication. And I understand that a lot of us have this pushback from doctors who really don't understand. And it's very hard to potentially get the things that we need because they don't think that we'll use it or we'll need it, or that it's beneficial because they don't see how it's going to work for us. Which is kind of why I am currently a doctoral candidate, because I'm going to be going on for my doctorate in nursing practice so that I would be able to prescribe nationwide or write up any type of need nationwide for any one of us that would need it. I think it's extremely important to have a board certified person with a disability in healthcare so that when one of us is drowning in insurance information and they don't know what to do anymore because they're being denied left, right, and center, that there's a provider that understands those roles and what is that we truly need in order to keep moving forward. So, in my current practice, I'm working on the standards of care. And on the educational side, I'm working on trying to ensure that you guys have someone to be able to reach out to when things aren't going the right way and you need to avoid the pressure sores, or you need to avoid losing home care hours, or need to get new equipment in general. Do you have another question, Kenny?
No, let me see. Nancy Nicholas is asking about how do we break the case management insurance hurdle of in the home? We want to be outside too,
Yes, we do want to be outside. So I'm pretty sure Here and Now has maybe put out what NCART and United Spinal is doing in terms of the political realm. It is extremely important to tell your story. I've said this before, but you need to reach out to your political leaders, even at the local level, because they need to understand that we're not supposed to be hidden anymore. Those laws were since 1970s. Like, we're not there anymore. We are very active in our communities, and we're vocal, and we have a story. The more that you talk about your own story, the more that you are showing who you are and what you do and why your voice matters, the more we get to change that narrative. We get to change the perception of disability and show that we are not only able and capable, but that we're deserving and worthy of it, just like anyone else is. These laws of in the home go based on Medicare and Medicaid. And the only way to get through that is to have local leaders understand that this is what needs to change. Sometimes we want to go straight to the top. The president needs to do it. Our senators need to do it. But it's actually our local community that can do it faster.
Nice. Yeah, we're actually going to have some DSHS folks on tomorrow talking about kind of supportive housing and employment, same kind of things, like resources for getting people out and making sure that they can still get out and do life when on their own. And yeah, we can definitely, with the Here Now project, we can hook everyone up with United Spinal, because we are the Washington chapter of United Spinal Association. And so the more we can get you guys connected, the better. And then we've got Ian jumping in with one question. What's one piece of advice you have for today's youth who have a disability and want to achieve their goals?
So the one piece of advice, honestly, is to just don't stop. There's going to be so many stop signs on your path, whether that's coming from your parents, your friends, your doctors, your caregivers. Everyone's going to put a stop sign in front of you. You have wheels for a reason. Keep pushing, push them down, keep rolling. Like, we weren't given wheels to just stay at the stop sign. Cars stop and they keep going. If I'm given four wheels to keep going, I'm going to keep going. I think the hardest part for youth is parents and caregivers. Mom says no, it's no. Dad says no, it's no. My mom and dad told me no, and I was like, bye. Again, I live in New York City, so it's a little bit easier for me to get away and get down the street to a corner store or to a Target and not have to worry about hopping in a car. But for those that have that little bit of an extra there, start having your friends, grab a friend group, start talking to people. I think we're more afraid to talk to others because of how they're going to perceive us than actually the other way around. They're already making these judgments about us just by looking and seeing, right? Again, going to the grocery store and grabbing milk is some big thing for them because they don't see us. But if we just say hi, or we even take that first step sometimes, which is often the hardest push or step, it can be a game changer. And you start to grow those friends that you never thought you would have before, because now they're interested in your story and they want to be a part of it. And I think that's what our youth need to hear. Like, it's okay to say hi to someone else and to to build that friendship. It doesn't need to be within the disability community either. So.
And then I think Charlotte has a question.
Okay.
Maybe if Rob can.
Hi, I was just typing it actually, so I'll just say it really quick. I just was going to say thank you for not giving up and for being such an encouragement to others. And I was going to ask too, did the nursing program or the college ever have to kind of give were they held responsible for how they had treated you and, you know, calling you out of your class and stuff? Like, that's so crazy.
So, no, they were never held to any responsible issue. I might have dropped the ball there because I didn't pursue it. At that moment, I wanted to just be a student. I wanted to just learn. I wanted to be a part of my peers and be in those study groups and not have to bring my disability to the forefront, because every time I went into a clinical setting, the teacher would be like, I'm going to pair you with, and I'm like, okay, everyone's already paired with someone because we don't go into these rooms alone, but you have to announce that you're pairing me with someone to kind of make my disability visible. There was a lot of pushback in nursing school that actually took a hard hit mentally. I needed to kind of step away from my disability, even though it was very blatant on what I was doing and how I would do things. And I needed to always think 20 steps ahead. But I was more concerned on just passing the class than really going after the nursing program for everything that they were doing. It wasn't until I actually finished nursing school and finished with that particular school until they called me back, told me that I was winning the President's Medal for all the work that I had achieved, that I went back and spoke to the dean and spoke to the president of the college, and I let them know that I thought that they were discriminating against potential future nursing students, and that they needed to kind of be the model nursing school for anyone with a disability. So not only for someone who was sitting in a wheelchair, but to understand that stethoscopes can now hear for you and can read to you, and that, you know, someone who has a limb difference or wears a brace is not considered an infection risk. And understanding that nursing or any part of healthcare is an evidence-based practice. So I like to say I'm proof. Now any student coming in knows that I've done it. I've gained the national attention for them to be able to point and say, nope, someone else has done it already, and I can do it too. And also, I have joined forces with the National Organization for Nurses with Disabilities, which is huge. I'm also an ambassador for Cherokee Uniforms, which is one of the major uniform brands for the medical field, and the Daisy Foundation, which is a nursing foundation built to recognize nurses. I have partnered with all three of them in order to ensure nurses are getting the training they need around disability, not only in a hiring sense, but in an educational sense. So it's going to be transcendent, bigger than what the college ever did, but the college will learn because of me. Thank you for that question.
And then we've got one from David Oakes that also, he says, I'm also in the chair, but I'm very interested in your work on mental disability issues. Can you tell us more about that connection?
Yeah, so we know how hard it is to find someone to talk to in our world. Yes, talking to mentors is one thing, talking to someone who's been there, done that is one thing, but when you get to talk to a licensed clinician that understands your world, it's a completely different field. There's not too many of us in social work or in the mental health space. And I have been working with those with United Spinal and NCART to start building a roster so that people actually, all the organizations can attach to and say, well, we have mental health clinicians that you can reach out to that not only understand disability, but understand that we shouldn't be told no, or that we can't, and that, you know, how do we navigate an inaccessible world? Because that's what a lot of our hindrance is on. Our hindrance is on the fact that our lives have changed, our mobility is different, and our reality doesn't actually provide space for that change. So it keeps us in this mental box sometimes, and especially when Others are telling you no, like physicians, every time you go to the doctor's office, something else is wrong. How do you get to work through that, or how do you navigate that? So definitely been working. It's a work in progress. I don't know if it'll be finished in the next year, but definitely trying to build that space, not only for those of us within the community. So those of you who are in school now to finish psychology or social work, tell your story, start getting out there, start making sure that you're making those connections so that we can add you guys to the roster as well, because you are going to be the impactful ones. I mean, I'm in nursing, and nursing, my nursing track will not follow into mental health, but I definitely understand the importance of all of these organizations having someone that they can tap into to get that to everyone out there.
Well, man, Andrea, we can't thank you enough for jumping on and being our keynote speaker. Your story is, it is undeniable in how you have kind of, pushed back ever since you were 5-7 years old, and it is, it's awesome to be able to share your tenacity with the community. And yeah, we just can't thank you enough. Any other kind of final words for the community before we move on to our next topic?
Final words is, guys, keep pushing. Don't stop. Like, use these wheels for what they're made to do, and that's to roll. So keep pushing. Let's go.
That's awesome.